guys. Okay, so I was originally planning on splitting up the rest of this piece into two sections by the rehearsal numbers, but honestly, the first section is only 6 measures, so I think we're just going to combine it and power through. Today we're going to go through 67 to the end of Tadihe, and this will be our last day of instruction on this piece. Go ahead and check the description box, click on the timestamp for your section, and we will get started. Okay, first violins. So let's mark in some things. First of all, we're making one bowing change, and that would be in 76 going into 77, where you've got the G sharp sliding to the E, sliding to the G natural. We're just going to split it up so that it's one slur from the G sharp to the E, and then the G natural is a down bow. So this is what that'll look like. And then that will change the printed down bow on the second half of measure 77 to an up bow instead. 78 will be up down, and then you'll be in the right place to do the up bow in measure 79. Okay, now let's go back to 67, and I'm going to walk you through this whole section as far as shifting goes. Starting in 68, you're going to do this in third position. So your second finger will be on E, and when you do the grace notes, your third finger, so here's your E, your third finger will touch your second finger because it's an F natural half step. In 69, you're going to shift down to first position and just play the grace notes 1, 2, 1, and it's an F natural again, so it'll touch, and then a fourth finger for the E, eighth note tied to the half note in 69. Stay in first position through measure 70, and you can play that A fourth beat of 70 as an open. And then in 71, we're going to shift back to third position, first finger on D, 72, same as 68, 2, 3, 2 for the grace notes and then the whole note. 73, go back to first position. That D sharp is going to be a low 1. While we're here, you might want to mark beat 3. That quarter note is still D sharp because the accidental lasts the entire measure. In 74, you're divisi, so the top people, you've got D natural, high D on the A string with third finger. Then for that G sharp, you're going to use a fourth finger. Instead of going 3 to high 3, you're going to go 3 to low 4. Back to 3, and back to low 4. Remember, the sharp lasts through the entire measure. Again, the beat 4 will also be G sharp. If you're on the inside, you're going to be playing D with a fourth finger, beginning of 74, then low 1 for G sharp, back to D, and then back to low 1 for the G sharp last note. In 75, just stay in first position. If you're on the outside, you can go ahead and play open A and open E. That's fine with me. And then if you're on the inside, you use a fourth finger for the A last note of measure 75. And then 76, inside people high 3, outside people high 2. For the slide that happens beats 3 and 4 of measure 76, we're going to be sliding from high 2 G sharp because, again, G sharp lasts for the whole measure. So you're going to do a G sharp, you're going to slide your second finger down to open E, and then on a down bow where we change the bowing, you're going to slide from the nut back up and land on G natural low 2. So again, high 2, slide down to nothing, from the nut, slide up to a low 2, and we'll go over that in a second. Then the rest of 77 you can play in first position. 78, if you're on the outside, just play the F sharp first position, first finger, and then shift up for the high D on the second note. So in 78, outside people, you're here for F sharp. Then when you shift to third position, your first finger lands on your third finger tape, or where it would be, and then you put 2, 3, and 4 down like that. F sharp, shift, D. 79, go right back into first position, and you can play that A open. And then 80, if you're on the outside, play that E with a fourth finger. 81, the first two notes are going to be in half position, so you're starting out with a D sharp, low 1. And then the B is going to be a second finger right next to it where your first finger tape would be. Beat 3, you can go to open D, and then beat 4, the B can be just a normal first finger. 82, you're divisi on the second and third beats, and I'm okay with all of these A's and E's to be open. So going back to 67, or 68 I should say, these grace notes are going to happen before the beat. So since that's the case, the best thing to do is practice it first without the grace note so you can see where the actual beats will fall. So that's what I'm going to do first. So you're in third position. Your first finger is on where your third finger tape would be, and then your second finger is down a whole step away. So it would be rest, rest, So 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3, 4. Okay, now I'm going to add the grace notes right before each beat. So 1, 2. 4. In measure 69, you might want to write the counting in there. So you have and a 1 and 2, 3, 4. And a 1, and the and a 1 is that pickup to measure 70. 72 is the same concept. You're just going to fit those grace notes in before the beat. So starting in 71, you would have 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. Next spot I want to hit is measure 74. So you've got this tritone happening. You're playing D with a third finger. This is outside people. Then you're going to leave your third finger there and put your fourth finger touching it but on the D string. Then you go back to D and back to G sharp. And the inside people are playing an octave lower just with low 1 on G and then open D. Okay, let's tackle this slide here in 76. Remember, we changed the bowing. So you're starting on a G sharp because there's an accidental earlier in the measure. You're going to slide your finger, and theoretically you're aiming to land on the open E right on beat 4. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4. So the slide takes up the whole of beat 3. Then on 77, you're just going to treat this like a normal slide into G natural, just like you've done in Turkey in the Straw since you were 5. So it would be 3, 4, like that. So putting it together, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and without counting, and then finally I just want to hit measure 81. So you're playing D sharp with a low 1, and then leaving that finger there, putting your second finger where your first finger tape would be on the A string, open D, and then regular 1. So it'll sound like this. And I think that pretty much covers all of the tricky parts. I'll just point out a few things. If you have separate eighth notes here, go ahead and play them legato. So I'm talking about like 75 and 77. This is kind of the recap of the whole tango idea. So it's all very loud, kind of boisterous, and you're starting out fortissimo. The lowest you get in this section is mezzo forte, back to forte at 73, fortissimo again at 75, and of course you end it fortissimo with a big crescendo leading up to it. Those last 3 notes are going to be down, 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 nice and short. And speaking of short, in 68, I think that those 2 quarter note E's should really have dots on them. So after you fit in the grace note, you're just going to kind of let the E go and stop the bow. The last thing I'll mention before I play through it is just that there are a lot of accents through here, and they are really important for setting up the kind of vertical alignment between the sections, particularly the one in measure 80, so make sure that you're hitting those accents nice and sharp. I'm going to set my metronome to quarter note equals 100, and I'm going to play through once playing the top notes and then once playing the inside people's notes. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And the inside. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So while I was playing, I noticed that that bow lift that happens in measure 69, it has to happen pretty quickly, especially since you're still fortissimo, so you actually do need to get in the lower half for pickup to measure 70 to have enough room to be loud still. The only other thing was the bowing is a little awkward in measure 80, down, up, so you might want to just go through that a couple times slower. Okay, so that's it. You should be practicing this section as well as the entire piece, and I look forward to hearing your recordings for this week. Okay, second violins. So, starting at measure 67, you have the perfect example of what we were talking about getting ready for festival. So you have all of these eighth notes followed by eighth note rests, and when you first look at it, maybe not, but when you first look at it, you might think, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to actually count here. No, you're not. So it's just going to sound like really, really, really short quarter notes. So it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And these are all down bows. They're all fortissimo, so just really loud and kind of obnoxious, which is awesome. Keep them obviously in the lower half. You wouldn't want to have to do repetitive down bows anywhere else in the bow. You'll notice that in 67 the down bows are written in, and then in 68 it just says SIM period. That stands for simile, which means in the same way, just so that they didn't have to put a down bow over every single note until 73. Just a couple of other things to note. In 76 you've got that E for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 total beats. I am not a huge fan of vibrating on a fourth finger for that long if I don't have to. So if it were me, I would probably use an open A, the last note of 75, and then shift and use a second finger in third position, and then jump back for the low A in 77. If that is more comfortable for you and you just like vibrating not on a fourth finger like I do, then go for it. Otherwise, 4 is fine, but you have to vibrate. In measure 79, you just might want to make note of the fact that you have a high 2 for B natural on the G string, and then a low 2 for F natural on the D string. 80, I circled the down bow for myself because we're not necessarily used to going down, up, especially since it's on beat 2. The reason for that is because it's an accent, and that accent is super important because each section does that rhythm in tiers, not like tears, like tiers. It's really important to hit that accent so that your part stands out. Then in 81, you've got low 1 D sharp, B, fourth finger for D natural, and then low 1 for G sharp. And then the last 3 notes are just down, down, down. Other than that, there's not too much remarkable in this section as far as difficulty goes. A lot of the things that we've seen before. In 73, you've got the line dot eighth notes, so long short, come off the string, set on the eighth rest, and then do your second up bow. Make sure you're hitting all of these accents. Most of this section is loud. You get to mezzo forte a couple of times after a decrescendo to 71, but then you're almost immediately back up to forte a couple of measures later. There's a crescendo in 80 and 81 leading up to 82, which is that last measure down, down, down. Other than that, I don't think this is going to give you very much trouble, so let's go ahead and set our metronome at quarter note equals 100 and play through this. 2, and go. One thing I noticed while I was playing, going from the end of 77 to the beginning of 78, if you're on the outside, it's a little awkward because you have third finger for G and then directly across to third finger for D. I would probably just hop and loosen up in the bow a little bit so that you don't hear any awkward extra sounds. You can also try putting your finger down on both strings if that works better for you. It's just going to be an experimental thing. Okay, that does it. So I look forward to hearing your recordings for this week, and I will see you next week. Okay, violas. So I am going to kind of talk about these two sections differently, starting with 67 to 73. So you guys definitely should recognize this rhythm. Anytime you have an eighth note followed by an eighth rest, it just sounds like a short quarter note. So you have 3 of those in a row, and then beat 4 is divided into 2 eighth notes. So you're going to be playing 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and. Make note of the bowing. Down, 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 up, and that repeats. In measure 70, they stop putting the literal bowing marks in, and it just says SIM period, which means simile or in the same way, so same bowing. We are going to do this divisi through here. Outside people, you're pretty much playing C almost the entire time with a couple of exceptions. However, take a look at measure 68. So you're going along playing C, right? C, 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 then the last note looks like a G. It's actually a G sharp, but the accidental was in the lower part. So that measure, if you're an outside person, is going to sound like this. That is the only time that happens, but it's worth noting. If you're on the inside, just pay attention, of course, to all of these accidentals. They last for the entire measure. So in measure 68, they're all G sharp. 69 goes to all open G. 70 goes to F sharp. In 71, they try to get you guys because it goes to F natural. There's no sharp because the F sharp accidental in measure 70 only lasts for the measure. And when you go to the new measure, it goes to F natural, but they didn't give you a courtesy accidental. Okay, so other than that, I'm going to go ahead and play just 67 to 73 through, once for the top notes and once for the bottom notes, and then we'll move on to 73. 2 and up. Here's for inside players starting at 67. 2 and up. So now let's talk about 73 to the end. So it starts out with the 1 and 3, 4, 1 and 3, 4. Just make sure you note that the F sharp for inside people in 73 lasts for the whole measure, so those last 2 quarter notes are also F sharp. Same thing in 74, talking about the G sharp, low 1. In 75, you guys finally get this tango melody. I think this is the first time that you've had it. I know you had the secondary melodic part where it says romantically, but this is the kind of main tango melody. So the rhythm is 1 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 3, 4. There is a lift in there and it has to happen pretty quickly, so stay in the lower half of the bow. And. So you're going back and forth between E and C for a while. Then in 78 it changes to C and A. You'll definitely obviously have to use a 4th finger for that unless you wanted to go into 3rd position, which is fine too. But definitely at the very least you're going to be going 3 to 4. And then that D on beat 4 of 79 is also going to be a 4th finger. The bowing in measure 80 is not necessarily awkward, but you might have to think about it. Just since it's on beat 3, you're doing a really fast down bow and then a slow up bow. So it's rest, rest, down, up, 1, 2, etc. That's a really important part. So we're doing this in sections. So the first violins have that on beat 1, seconds have it on beat 2, you guys have it on beat 3. So make sure that that down bow is really on the beat and accented. Then you're crescendoing through, you've got E flat. I would really prefer 4th finger D, just since it's a half note in 81. And then down, down, down for the last 3 notes. That's pretty much it for this section. I would just say once you get that tango rhythm and bowing, you'll be set. You'll notice that, like for instance in 75, the second note of the measure, the and of 1, has a dot on it. So that's going to help not only with the rhythm, but also getting that bow lift in there in time. So da-da, da-da. And it's fine if you cut it really pretty short. Okay, that about does it for this section. I'm going to go ahead and play through. I'm just going to play the top notes. I think inside people can figure out the G sharp and 73. So setting my metronome, quarter note equals 100, and here we go. Oh, one thing I need to mention before I start is you'll notice that there's a bow lift in 75 and 77, but not in 76 and 78. You might have to kind of fight yourself to not do another bow lift since it's the same rhythm, more or less, but it's down, 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 up, so that you can be down on the second phrase. Just something to know. Okay, here we go. 2 and go. Okay, that's it. We've done the whole song. I look forward to hearing your recordings for this week, and I will see you next time. Okay, cellos. So you do have some tricky stuff in here, but I think once we talk through it, it won't be as intimidating maybe as it looks. So first let's talk 67 to 73. You have kind of this really loud and romantic sweeping slur coming up from low A to high A. The fingering I'm going to recommend here is starting in first position. We're talking about the eighth notes in 67. 1, 4, 1. For the A, shift so that your second finger lands on G, and then use your fourth finger for A, and then back to G sharp for 68, and then 2 for G in 69. So it's going to go A, C, E, A, G sharp, G. One more time. A, C, E, shift A, G sharp, G. Then the eighth notes in 69 you can do in first position, just A, C, E, G, F sharp. 71, high D to C natural, and then the eighth notes A, B, C, F natural. Make sure you get a second finger there. 72. This first part I don't think is going to give you any trouble. Just make very sure that you save your bow. When you're doing a slur across multiple strings, it's really easy to lose bow as you're changing strings and run out. So save as much as possible. Make sure you're using a lot of weight because this is fortissimo through here. I'm going to go ahead and just play these first 6 measures, and then we'll talk about 73 to the end. 3, 4, rest, rest. And especially save your bow on that last whole note in 72 so that you can crescendo into 73. Okay, now let's talk 73 to the end. So going into 75, you have a slide and a slur at the same time. If you look at this compared to what we did pick up to 57, it's almost the same. You're starting on an E, but instead of going to a B, you're going to an A. So you're actually going a whole step less than you were going before. So starting on your E, you're going to be sliding through F, F sharp, G, and landing on A. And once again, it'll look different on a cello, but that's the distance. So I would recommend the same process that we did talking about the last slide. First, find the 2 notes and practice what they sound like. So E to A. So in time, it'll be, that was 74, and the first note is 75. Then you can practice the distance, and it is going to be a down bow slur. Remember that the slide, even though it's notated through the measure, the slide is going to happen on beat 4, and you're going to land on beat 1 on the A. So in time it would be, and then when you do the next note, the 8th note, you can go back into actually half position. So let's talk about this 16th note section. After you manage the slide, so you've just done your slide from E to A, when you go back for the 8th note after the rest, you're going to land in half position. So your second finger is going to go on that first finger tape. Here's the pickup A. Here's the E. Now we're starting the 16th notes, and it's going to be 2, 1, on the slur for E to D sharp, move that 1 up, and do the last 4 notes in first, E, F, E, C. So let's do that again, starting at pick up to 75. Here's my E, sliding, E, A, E, D sharp, E, F, E, C. Then you're going along. 76 can be done in first position, no problem. In 77, your first 2 notes, if you're on the outside, would be an E, if you're on the inside, would be a C. Then after the 8th rest, again, 1 for the D sharp, 2 for the E, 2, 1, last 4 notes in first. So here's measure 77, let's say you're on the outside. So it would be E, E, D sharp, E, D sharp, E, F, E, C. So the finger numbers would be 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 4. Then the rest of this line can be done in first, 79, no problem, 80, 81, no problem. Then 82 is exactly the same as measure 50. The only difference is the last note is divisi. So outside players, you can play open A, that's fine with me. And then inside players, 1 on the G string for A, for low A. Okay, so I'm just going to play slowly through these 16th note parts. I'm going to play it at half tempo, so a quarter note equals 50, just so that you can hear what it sounds like. 2, 3. 2. 2. 2. Now I'm going to play that section up to tempo. So quarter note equals 100. 2, 3. 2. This is definitely a section you're going to probably want to slow down, start a little bit slower, make sure that you're getting the shifts and all of the accidentals through here. I'm going to go ahead and play 73 all the way to the end at quarter note equals 100. 2, and go. And if I didn't mention it, those last 3 notes are down, down, down. The down bows, for some unknown reason, are really tiny. In any case, that last measure is down, down, down. Okay, that's going to do it for this piece. Happy practicing, and I look forward to hearing your recordings for this week. All right, basses, last part. Let's get this done. So, 67 to the end is yet another thrilling section for the lowly bassist stuck as a backup band member for a tango competition. This first section is just repeated A's. This is the same rhythm we were talking about when we were getting ready for festival. An 8th note followed by an 8th rest is just going to sound like a staccato quarter note. These happen to be all down bow. You'll see that measure 67, you get the down bows on every note, but then in 68 to 73, it just says sim, S-I-M period. That stands for simile, which means in the same way, so the same bowing. Catch the dynamic change at the end of measure 70, you're decrescendoing to mezzo forte, and then back up to forte at 73. 73, you've got that same rhythm you had earlier. You've got a bow lift in 73, not a bow lift in 74. Make sure that your second note starts on an up bow so that your slide happens on a down bow. You may not have even noticed the slide. I think it's printed kind of poorly, but there is a slide from beat 4 of 74 to beat 1 of 75. So you're supposed to be sliding from E up to A. So my advice would be pick whatever finger you're most comfortable sliding on. I would probably pick 2, maybe, and then just go like from the nut and hit A. I would practice just the interval first, just listening to E and A so that you know where you're aiming for, measuring the distance. That's how I would do it. I'll tell you the same thing I've told other sections that have had slides, and I know you guys did before, and I probably said this before, but I'll just say it again. The slide happens on beat 4, and then you should be landing on the A on beat 1 of 75. So make sure the slide doesn't extend any farther than that. Then the only other thing of note would be the last measure. So a couple of things are going on. First of all, you've got these grace notes, which is very similar to what you had in measure 50. And I would do the same fingering. So your first grace note is G sharp, so G sharp to A. This is your low G sharp, so where your fourth finger would be in first position on the E string, that's where I would shift up and put my first finger. So then I would go 1, 2, then in half position, 1, 2 for the D sharp to E, and then open A. So again, 4 on E, put your first finger there, 1, 2, shift to half position on the D string, 1, 2, and then open A. And do note that those 3 notes are all down bows. The down bow marks on the first 2 are like teeny tiny baby down bows. I have no idea why they printed them like that. I guess just to show that it belongs to the grace note. But in any case, last 3 notes down, down, down. That's pretty much it. Just make sure that your articulations are nice and crisp and you're hitting all of these accents. I'm going to set my metronome to quarter note equals 100 and play through this. 2 and go.